Hello everybody, this is Sharon speaking. Thank you for joining the webinar. I'm just going to be a few more minutes and I won't wait more than a couple more minutes for additional people to sign into the system, and then we'll start at that time. If you're having any issues, don't forget that there is a technician available at all times during the teleconference. And if you have any questions for us, there is a chat box on your bottom left where you can enter a message to send to us, and I'll walk through that a little bit more in a bit. Talk to you in a minute. Okay, I think we're going to get started. There are a few more people that will be joining us as we go through, and they'll catch up and have to ask some questions later, I guess. So thank you very much for everybody for joining us today. I'm going to turn on my webcam just briefly, and Anne, can you do the same, please? Hi, everybody. I'm not going to keep this on for the whole session, just so it's not a distraction. You don't need to be looking at me. I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Sharon Zick. I'm a Senior Programs Officer here at the CFI, and I'm happy to be doing this webinar with you today. And Anne Rouleau is one of my colleagues. She's a Programs Officer here as well, and you can see her there. Okay, so we're also being joined by some of our colleagues here, including Heidi Banjule, who is one of the lead senior programs officer on the College Fund, and a number of our other colleagues as well are participating. So thank you, and hello everybody. So I'll turn this off now and I'll continue on. So what I want to do just very quickly, many of you are probably new to the VIA platform, so I just want to walk you around a few things very, very quickly. On the top right-hand column, you'll see a number of toolbars that look like they do in the center of your screen right now. These are not activated for everybody, but I just wanted to let you know that, and mainly because there's no need for everybody to start making notes on the the presentation today. It's mainly meant for brainstorming and different things where the participants will be active. So that's what those are anyway, and you'll see me using different tools throughout. We will also be recording this webinar so that it will be available to you after the session is done, and we are looking into having it posted on our website as well. So if you wanted to refer back to anything, it is being recorded. If you move down to the bottom right of your bottom of your screen, for the most part, you're going to see a number of tabs, and mainly we're going to be focused on the documents that are there. We won't be going through all of them today, but they are all there and they're available for download. So you can, from your main activity screen, which is what you entered when you signed on to the session, they're downloadable from there as well, but also from the bottom right hand side where it says documents to download. On the top, I'm just going to highlight it there. You can zoom your screen. Here, wait, I got that wrong. You can zoom your screen if you wanted to see this middle presentation section a little bit bigger. You can also print any of the slides one by one if you wish to do so. If you do want to make any specific references, you can do that. And there's also a notepad, so you can make yourself some notes, and you can either save those as a text file or print those out as well. So those are some tools that are available to you. And finally, on the far left, you'll see my mug there, which you don't need to look at for too long. There's a number of personal options that are available. On the left, the hand, when you click on the arrow, that is mainly there to indicate if I have any questions for you, to say whether or not you hear me or whether or not you agree. If you step out for a minute, you can put there's a timeout on there. And so you can use that if you wish. We're asking that you not use your webcams and your microphones if you do have them on. So make sure they're not highlighted green. As you can see, the speaker is highlighted green. That means I can hear if anybody is speaking. But by allowing me to be the only one with the microphone on, it'll eliminate some of the background noise. In this, you can't see the participants in the screen I have here, but on your actual left-hand side, you'll be able to see all the screens or all the people that are participating in the webinar today. The main tool that we would like for you to use is this chat piece right here today for any of your questions. So as I'm talking and you have something that you're wondering about, please feel free to type in a message way at the bottom where it says enter your message here, and make sure that you click who you want it to send to. If it's a question, I would definitely encourage you to include all users on those questions, but definitely you can just send them to the leaders, which are myself and Anne of the webinar, and we will go through those intermittently, and I'll be stopping very regularly to take questions and to answer those. So if you hear, if there's questions where I will be added onto by my colleagues, you may hear another voice, so just to forewarn you on that. But those are the key tools that will be available to you today as we go through the webinar. Give me 1 second, I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything for you. Okay, no, I think we've got all the housekeeping available. Is there any questions now? Is everybody able to see everything okay? I'm going to go, you should see the first page of the presentation, which says College Industry Innovation Fund, CIIF, Spring 2011. If you're having some issues, again, the technician is on site and online, and if you do have some issues, then please let us know. Okay, this webinar will take approximately 2 hours between my talking to you as well as the questions that you have, and we're going to answer those. Any questions that we can't answer, we will definitely get the answers to you very shortly after the teleconference is over. Okay, I'm just going to open up this. Okay. bear with me here. I'm just going to move a few things around just to get organized. Okay. So today we're going to be doing a very brief overview of the Canada Foundation for Innovation. There are a number of colleges that are new in terms of applying to the CFI and being eligible to apply to the CFI. So we'll go through that a little bit for you, and we'll talk a little bit about how the colleges have been a part of the CFI's funding over the past almost 15 years. And finally, we will look at the important part. We'll look at the College Industry Innovation Fund and go over those in depth. So I just wanted to remind everybody that the majority of the information is found in the call for proposals, both streams 1 and 2, and in the CFI program and policy guide. These are available on the website. Now I have included these links for you in this session. So again, from your main page, after the session is over, you can go back to the main link, and they are available there, but they are quite easy to get to from the CFI website on the online tools and the downloadable aspects from this activity. Okay. So the CFI. The CFI was created in 1997 by the Government of Canada to fund research infrastructure with a mandate to strengthen the capacity of Canadian universities, colleges, research hospitals, and not-for-profit research institutions to carry out world-class research and technology development to benefit Canadians. And since then, the CFI has contributed $5.4 billion to Canadian institutions, and this is over 7,000 projects and 132 institutions spread out across the country. The CFI supports all fields of research, so we support the infrastructure needs of research in the natural and social sciences, in engineering, humanities, and health sciences. The CFI funding decisions are always based first and foremost on excellence of the research that's proposed to us. And so in terms of the CFI funding formula, you'll see here that the CFI funds up to 40% of the total infrastructure costs, with the remaining 60% coming from various funding partner contributions, be it in cash or in in-kind contributions. In addition, all funded projects generate an allocation of 30% of the total capital, CFI capital award, and this is to help offset the cost to operate and maintain the CFI funded infrastructure, and this fund is called the Infrastructure Operating Fund, or the IOF. Unlike the federal granting agencies, however, the proposals aren't submitted by the researchers. These are institutional awards, and therefore the projects are submitted ultimately by the institutions. And finally, by requiring institutions to develop their own strategic research plans, the CFI ensures that the decisions about the areas of actual and potential research strength are taken from the ground up, as the institutions and, in many cases, the provinces identify their own priorities for the CFI proposals. How is the colleges? Where have they been in place all this time? So way back, as I said, the CFI came into being in 1999. In 1997, sorry. In 1999, the College Research Development Fund was launched, and the intent of this fund was to build capacity across Canada in colleges. And in that competition, there were 40 projects funded for a total of almost $15.6 million. Since then, there have been ongoing opportunities for colleges through the Innovation Fund, and since 2006, the Leading Edge and the New Initiatives Funds. These are competitions that are open to all eligible institutions, including colleges, and so the competition is quite intense. And many of you may know already, but there is a new LEFNIF competition to be launched by the end of this year, that has a funding envelope of $155 million, and colleges are able to lead or to collaborate in projects. In 2010, bringing us to the current competition, the College Industry Innovation Fund, I'll give you a little bit of history. We had done a pan-Canadian consultation following our 2009 LEFNIF competition, and the college community expressed a need for a national funding mechanism to support research infrastructure dedicated solely to colleges. In the budget 2009, and with CFI strategic planning exercise, led the Government of Canada to allocate $25 million to launch this new fund to fill the gap that was identified by the community. And in the fall of last year, the CFI conducted another pan-Canadian consultation to determine the parameters of this new fund and to ensure that it was going to meet the needs of the community and to build upon its strengths. And the draft call, as all of you know, was released last November, and we are here today to discuss the next steps with this competition. Okay, I'm going to take a quick stop there, and I see that there is there are some questions, and so I wanted to answer one of them. Dr. Tan has asked how long the IOF usually lasts for. The IOF is an allocation based on 30% of the capital award from the CFI to the institution, and it's up to the institution to determine the disbursement of those funds in terms of the needs to operate and maintain the infrastructure that was awarded in that project. Okay. Now moving on to the next, talking about business innovation, which is the key of this competition. The CIIF, or the College Industry Innovation Fund, recognizes that the unique expertise of colleges in the areas of applied research and technology development and supports their role in enabling business innovation, particularly in the small and medium enterprises. I'll give you a moment to read this definition, which is the definition that the CFI is using for business innovation. Okay. Now, there are four. I'm gonna get ahead of myself here, and I'm not gonna put everything up on the screen, so catch me if I do that. Okay, there are four objectives of the CIIF competition. The first is to stimulate competitive college industry research and development partnerships by encouraging interactions between the colleges and their private sector partners, to enable the college to respond to specific technological challenges of their industrial partners, such as finding solutions to problems that have been identified by the private sector, or improve some of their processes, just as a few examples. And finally, to allow the college to undertake some large-scale collaborative projects with these industrial partners. The second objective is to enhance the research and development capacity at the college in an area of institutional strategic priority, recognizing that infrastructure and the human resources are all components needed to support these partnerships. Third is to provide highly qualified personnel. Sorry, I was about to start getting into the acronym area, so HQP, with opportunities to participate and gain know-how in research and technology transfer activities through the direct hands-on experience with state-of-the-art instrumentation. And finally, to generate regional and national socioeconomic benefits through partnerships with the private sector and other relevant stakeholders. One example of this is to meet the needs of a local SME community by providing a service they don't yet have access to. Okay. A quick overview of the funding that's available. There are two streams. The first stream is a CFI research infrastructure alone, and so this is a single application to the CFI, and there are two competitions. The first, as you know, is in 2011, so this year, and the second being next year at the same time. And the first competition, there's $13 million allocated of $20 million to that competition, with the remaining $7 million allocated for the second competition next year. Stream 2 is a research infrastructure associated with a 5-year NSERC College and Community Innovation, or CCI, Innovation Enhancement Grant. And this competition these competitions combined have $5 million allocated to them, and they are coordinated with the CCI rounds 8 and 9. So each competition has the infrastructure component with $2.5 million for each of those 2 rounds. Given the limited budget, and in response to the feedback that we did receive from the consultations, or through the consultations, we have limited the number of proposals that can be submitted by a given college as a lead institution to only 1 per stream. Okay. And secondly, each application to the CFI may only ask for up to $800,000 from the CFI. So take into account that the CFI only funds 40% of the projects. These can be $2 million infrastructure requests, with the remainder coming from partner contributions. Now, I just wanted to make note as well that although a college can only submit 1 application as the lead, it is possible for colleges to collaborate with other institutions so long as they aren't the lead in more than 1. Both of the streams target colleges with a proven research track record that are already doing some research and development and already have the capacity and the space to do more research. And generally, these institutions will have received research and development funding in the past. Existing capacity refers not only to the infrastructure, but also to existing private sector partners. Colleges that don't yet have an active established partnership might not be as competitive in this fund. Colleges that are just at the beginning of building their research capacity, or who wish to branch out in new research areas for which they have little experience, should consider other federal programs which are specifically designed to build research capacity and to establish new partnerships. These include such grants as the entry-level NSERC CCI grants, or Ideas to Innovate grant, or Ideas to Innovation grants. Sorry. Okay, I'll talk more about the CFI eligibility. So first we'll talk about the institutional eligibility and who can apply. Institutions must be a college to apply to the CIIF competition, and that means that it's an institution whose primary mandate is to grant college diplomas. The definition that we're using for a college is a community college, an institute of technology, or a post-secondary college, such as a CEGEP, that has the primary mandate and ability to grant diplomas, or a diplôme d'études collégiales, in accordance with the provincial or territorial standards. And so that is outlined in the call for proposals and is the outline of who we are considering eligible for this current competition. Institutions must confirm their eligibility with the CFI, and so at the very bottom of the screen you can see the email address there, and anybody that is applying to the first round of the competitions will have already contacted the CFI, I would imagine. If you haven't, give us a call today immediately after this webinar to make sure that you have established your eligibility status with us and that we have all of the updated information, and I will explain why this is critical in just a bit. I just want to make sure I'm getting through everything here and not miss any important information for you. For Stream 2, the college must also be eligible to the CFI, but you have to also be eligible to one of the tri-councils. So you need to be able to submit applications to either SSHRC, NSERC, or the CIHR. All eligible institutions must provide an updated institutional agreement, especially for those applying to the first competition. Given that it's coming up very, very shortly, we should already have yours. The IA ensures that your institution will first abide by the rules and regulations of the CFI, but it will also provide us with the necessary information we have to make sure that you can access the CFI online system and submit your proposal. All individuals that appear on this form will be given an account and a password, and only those individuals will have the authority to submit the NOIs, because as I mentioned, the CFI NOIs and applications have to be submitted by the institution, not by the researchers. Also, at the NOI deadline, the Notice of Intent deadline, you will be required, or the institution will be required, to submit a summary of the strategic research plan. And this is similar to the CCIs. It's a 2 to 5 page summary of your overall plan, and it is part of the evaluation, and the experts will evaluate how your project aligns in terms of eligible projects. As per the definition in the CFI's Policy and Program Guide, an eligible infrastructure project involves the modernization, acquisition, or development of applied research or technology development infrastructure. The characteristics of these include a new capital asset that provides a new or improved research capacity, should definitely serve more than one researcher and more than one partnership, and should stimulate new interest from other potential partners. Proposals must give evidence of established partnerships or provide evidence of the team's experience with the private sector in the research area and their involvement from the early stages of the application. So it's critical that the capacity be in place currently. Colleges who have not yet identified their partners may wish to wait until the next round of competition. Whether the proposal is a collection of smaller projects or one larger project, it is important to articulate them around a common theme that is in an area of strength and priority for the college. So we encourage that you have a well-defined research priority or list of research priorities, and identify an area in which the investment would be most beneficial for the institution. And in terms of the location of the infrastructure, in general, the infrastructure will be located at the college. However, in certain circumstances, it makes a lot more sense to have the infrastructure located elsewhere outside of the college. And if this is the case, and it is most effective way to proceed, then we will ask that you provide us with a confirmation, and we can outline that later on in the whole process, to ensure that you retain majority interest so that the college has de facto control over the use of the infrastructure. Okay. And we have, Anne, do we have any questions? Okay. Okay. I'll move on to the use of the infrastructure. The infrastructure, of course, must be used to carry out
Sharon?
research and development activities. Anne?
Yes,
yeah?
sorry, I
Hi,
couldn't
Anne.
find my button. Sorry. We're being asked about when the institution will receive their login. So I started typing an answer saying that once the eligibility has been established and we have received a hard copy of the institutional agreement, then the IDs will be generated and sent to the institution. Right now, because it is a work in progress, we expect that by the end of next week, the institution who already have their eligibility will start receiving their IDs.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Anne. Okay, and I see another question from Carl Weatherall. Can you elaborate on how productivity is assessed? I'm going to speak a little bit more about the review process a little bit later, so bear with me, and I'll move through the presentation, and if I haven't answered you beyond once we get there, then we'll take a look at it. Thanks for your patience. So as I mentioned, the infrastructure must be used to carry out research and development activities. It can be used for research training purposes in the cases where the training is articulated around an applied research or technology development project aimed at business innovation. It, however, cannot be used for educational purposes where the use is a key requirement of the regular coursework or the diploma requirements. The primary use for the research and research training by faculty, research partners, and professionals, technicians, and other HQP. All of those are appropriate uses. I guess the overall message would be that as long as the activity is contributing to the actual research project, the use is acceptable. If there's a case where there is a sharing of the a somewhat sharing of the research between, or the infrastructure between research and some training, we can look at prorating the budget according to those uses. As I had indicated initially, the eligible, or the CFI will funds up to 40% of the eligible infrastructure costs. The CFI funding is intended to support the significant research infrastructure made up of either a single item or a number of items. And it is important to note that unlike the other agencies, however, the CFI funds only specific items that are detailed in the proposal. So it's not like an NSERC operating grant where there's a little bit more flexibility. There are once you submit an application with a number of infrastructure items outlined, those are what are assessed through the review process, and that is what we expect that you will be purchasing in order to complete the project as requested or implement the project. Eligible infrastructure items can include equipment and components, scientific collections, computer, software, and databases. As well, minor construction or renovations essential for housing and using the CFI infrastructure is also deemed eligible. Again, as I mentioned, the CFI Programs and Policy Guide has a number of pieces. I apologize for, I can't turn off my phone here. The Program and Policy Guide is going to be your Bible as you're putting this together, and it has a lot of information. And so with respect to the eligible costs, I would encourage you to look at section 4.5 of the guide, and the website specifically for the guide is provided to you there, but as well it is available on this session. I've included the link, and it is easily accessible from the CFI's website as well. In addition, I'll just, in terms of the eligible costs, the CFI allows, specifically for the first competition, any purchases of infrastructure that were made on or after April 1st, 2011, they may be included in your infrastructure request. Okay, in terms of non-eligible costs, the purchase or the purchase or lease of real property are not eligible. Access to high-speed national and regional networks such as CANet, office and meeting room space and furniture are not eligible costs. However, where there is the need to have a technician to operate and maintain the infrastructure, a space for that individual is considered eligible. Consumables, so any reagents, for example, or oil for a machine, for example, are considered consumables and are therefore not eligible costs for a CFI award, as well as direct costs of the research. Any costs related to things such as teaching releases, travel, student stipends, anything that would be considered eligible by a granting council, for example. So if it's eligible to be included on the CCI grant, for example, those would not be considered eligible by the CFI. Okay. Again, I'm going to reiterate the fact that the CFI only funds up to 40% of the eligible costs of infrastructure, and so the colleges will be required to find financial partners for the remaining 60%. These contributions must be towards the eligible infrastructure. So the costs can't be just any in-kind or any cash contributions to the project. They have to be very specifically for the eligible infrastructure. Eligible partners may include institutional funds, trust funds, foundations, firms and corporations, departments and agencies of the federal government, departments and agencies of the provincial, territorial, municipal governments, not-for-profit organizations, and individuals. Funding from a key is that funding from the Tri-Council agencies are not considered matching funds. So this includes NSERC, SSHRC, and CIHR, including funding through the CCI program. Again, in-kind contributions count, so these can be in-kind contributions from a vendor. I'm not going to go into too much depth in terms of how you can determine what what we would consider an in-kind contribution. This information is outlined quite clearly in the programs and policy guide. And if you do have any additional questions when you are putting together your budget, you can contact your senior programs office. And I just wanted to also make a note that private sector partner contributions in the CCI are eligible. Just the contributions, the CCI itself, that the NSERC funds. So the NSERC portion of a CCI is not eligible as a matching fund. However, industrial partnership funding would be considered eligible. Okay, I'm just going to stop for a moment right here and see if there are any, before we go into too much depth about the two different streams, if there are any questions. And if you do have a microphone and are able to turn it on, then please feel free to do so. Otherwise, you can type your note into the chat box and we will answer that. Okay, one question is, are universities eligible partners? And yes, indeed. This is put forward by Joe Rousel. Yes, universities can be partners key participants on these applications. However, the proposals themselves have to be led by a college. Okay, Dr. Tan, can we include the equipment funded from NSERC into this proposal? If yes, and how? No. If funding has been received through NSERC, you can't also ask for funding from the CFI for the same pieces of equipment. Okay. So we'll take a quick look at the timeline. We are right about here. And as I had mentioned before, those individuals that are applying to Stream 1 for the first competition will have already determined or established their CFI. We will have determined, but you will have established your CFI eligibility, and we will have an updated institutional agreement on hand for you. And again, this is important because we will need to know who at the institution needs to have all the passwords and information to sign on to the institutional portal of our online system. Okay, so the application process will be done in two phases. The first stage is a notice of intent, or an NOI, and this is due June 10th, at which time the strategic research plan will also be required, with a full submission of the application due September 30th, so this fall. The NOI will not be formally assessed, so it is not a part of the review process. But all of those who have submitted an NOI will be allowed to submit a proposal. So this is just a bit different from the CCI process. So again, the NOI is being submitted not as a part of the review process, but it enables and is helpful for the CFI in planning the evaluation process and for recruiting reviewers and the committee members. So it is a critical step for us to get ready for the review process and for the remainder of the competition. but it will not be something by which you are assessed in terms of being able to submit a full proposal. And as I will explain a little bit later, the evaluation process of the full proposals will be done in 2 steps. There are expert reviews by expert committees, and there are multidisciplinary assessment committees. And the MACs will meet in January of 2012. And the CFI board will make their decision in March 2012 with the announcement and results announced shortly thereafter. And it is a very similar timeline, shifted back by about a year for Stream 1 competition number 2, where the notice of intent will be due to the CFI next June, so June 2012. Okay. The notice of intent is a very short document, and as I outlined why we use it, that is the reason. It is only about 6 pages long, and it's meant to contain all the information we will need to prepare for the evaluation process. You will need to fill the NOI in online. So although it is available online for your reference as a PDF document, it must be submitted online. And so for the researchers, they will need to create an account with the CFI by going onto the CFI website. And the institutions who will be submitting these applications will also need to ensure that you have all of your information. I'm just going to pull up, if you bear with me for 1 second, I'm going to pull up the document so we can take a quick look at it. Let me make this a little bit bigger. We'll go through it bit by bit. So the cover page is a summary of the or an overview of the project, and so it includes such things as the name and title of the project leader, a little bit of information about the project being funded, more information about the disciplines, the area of the application, and some keywords which will be critical in helping us to identify in the reviewers and the appropriate experts to be recruited. The second page will list the key participants, and these participants can be associated with the college or with organizations, but should be essential to the proposed activities leading to business innovation. They can include technicians, research professionals, not necessarily from the faculty, and they can include individuals from the private sector. And again, going back to the question about whether or not universities are eligible partners, this is where you would put your participants from the university sector here. The third page outlines the partners, and what we ask is that you list your partners and briefly describe the nature of the current industrial partnerships and indicate the potential nature of the prospective partnerships. And also, just to give you a quick heads up, that these partners will also have to submit letters of support with the full proposal later this year. The fourth page looks at the program overview, and so you will briefly describe the planned applied research and technology development projects and how they align with the needs of the private sector partners. Oops, let me go. Sorry about that. Let me just flip to the next page. I hit the wrong key. Now this is a brief outline. We don't expect you to put a budget together per se for the NOI. However, we would like to know what type of infrastructure you will be requesting and explain how the availability of the infrastructure will allow the college to strengthen its participation in the partnership with industry. Now the next slide looks at, or the last page is suggested reviewers. And I'm going to flip back to the presentation, and you're going to have to bear with me for 1 second while I get back to the appropriate slide. I do apologize. I'm way off here. Bear with me. It's not easy flipping through them. Okay, here we go. So suggested reviewers are critical. The selection of the experts is one of the critical steps in ensuring that a fair and rigorous evaluation is done of your proposal. And so we ask that you include reviewers that have expertise in the field of the proposal and or the private research and development process and or the college-based research. They may be from various sectors, so these can be individuals from academia, from the government, from industry. They can be Canadian or foreign nationals, and we ask that you recommend people that are fluent in the language of your proposal. So, for example, I believe everybody online today is English. However, if you are submitting a proposal in French, then we ask obviously that you recommend to us reviewers that will be able to read your proposal. The reviewer must not be from the same institution or the organization as your participants or your partners. They can't appear in the NOI or in the proposal, so they cannot be key participants or people that have reviewed your proposal previously as a collaborator, or they can't have been a collaborator or student of any of the participants or partners in the past 6 years. And these are primarily to avoid conflicts of interest. Ultimately, the CFI will make the final selection. The online form will allow you to provide a minimum of 6 reviewers, but there is room for up to 18 suggested reviewers. The CFI will ultimately use some of these as well as others that we have identified through a rigorous search as well, but we do count on the best suggestions from the project proponents. The form will let you enter the keywords about each of the reviewer's expertise, and will provide you with some space where you can provide a link to a professional web page, for example, so that we can take a look at that, ensure that they have a full spectrum of the necessary expertise that's needed. Since individuals with the necessary qualities are often difficult to find, especially those from the private sector. Again, I can't enunciate enough that the CFI relies on the information that you provide through this. So this is a very, very important. Okay. So we'll just take a quick look at the NOI Online Submission. There are a number of steps, and as we had just indicated a few minutes ago, Anne had said that the eligible institutions will receive a password to access your institutional accounts and the CFI online system next week. However, the researchers can go on and set up their accounts now. And you go onto this, and I think maybe I'll just take a moment, if you can bear with me. I am going to just so that you can see really quick. I'm going to be sending you a link. So you will receive a little message that says it requires you to accept or deny having another window pop open that you can look at. And this window is simply a look at what the sign-in page looks like to the CFI Award Management System, or in short, the CAMS. And if you have not already set up your profile with the CFI, you just under the sign-in button, you will see a line that says create a new account. And you simply click on that and walk through the steps. It's very intuitive, well laid out, and so you should have no problem. But I would encourage the researchers and all key participants to do this. Sooner the better, and that way you can start putting in your information and getting the NOIs filled in, etc. Okay. So that will happen next week, as Anne had already mentioned. The project leader and key participants, as I just mentioned, will have to set up their own accounts. And again, this is ready for them to do now. And the project leader will also be the individual that creates the NOIs. I'm not going to confuse you right now, but there is, there will be the opportunity to share putting the application together between the project leader and key participants through a sharing functionality. But just to let you know that that will be there. I won't describe it any further right now, though, for you. We will be holding further information sessions, most likely through webinars later on this summer, and we'll be able to outline all the functionality at that point and help you guide you through the online application form when it is up and ready. As the project leader includes the key participants, what's going to happen is that an invitation via an email message will be sent to each of the participants, and they will have to, each of the key participants will have to consent to participate in the NOI. And so that's why it's important for all to have their CFI um, profiles set up. And so once the consents have been received, the project leader can then submit the NOI to the institution. So all the key participants will have consented to say that yes, they'll appear, it'll be validated on the NOI. The project leader can then submit the NOI to the institution. The institution will then review the NOI and make any revisions as necessary. And if there are any changes to be made, the institution will have the ability to return the notice of intent back to the project leader to make any revisions. Once the institution, though, has submitted the notice of intent to the CFI, they will no longer have access to make any changes, but they will be able to still read it, of course. Just any modifications beyond that won't be possible. In addition, we will require on June 10th as well that a signed copy, a single signed copy of the NOI be mailed to the CFI, and it should be postmarked on June 10th, so on the date of the deadline date. Okay. Now the full proposal is a lot more in depth, and I know this is a little bit of a busy slide because there's lots of information that we'll be asking. The full proposal will be available online in May, and if a college has already submitted a 5-year CCI application, you'll be able to reuse several of the sections, so as a cut and paste as opposed to redefining everything, just to make things a little bit easier for you. The CFI, as I had just mentioned, will organize some future webinars, most likely late this spring or in the beginning of the summer months, to walk you through the online application form for the Stream 1 proposals, both in English and in French. So the first page is a project summary, and it's simply an overview of the project. The college capacity and track record, which will provide you with 2 pages to describe how the activities fulfill the institutional strategic research plan, and will allow you to outline and ask you to outline the past institutional commitments, the capacity at the college in terms of research and development, as well as research and development funding that you've had in the past and past activities with the private sector. A number of pages, so 8+, will be dedicated to talking about the contribution to business innovation. In this section, you will be asked to outline the plan for the proposed research and development activities with the private sector. And as I mentioned, the partners that you outlined in your notice of intent will be asked will be required to submit a letter of support, and this will be due on the same day as the applications are due this September. 2 pages will be dedicated for you to describe the infrastructure and how the increased capacity will be beneficial to your partnerships, and if similar infrastructure exists in your region or in Canada. 2.5 pages will be dedicated to the sustainability of the infrastructure. And so this is a section which focuses on the implementation phases and future operations and maintenance plans, and the access to the infrastructure and the operations and maintenance budget, for example. And in the next section about the team, you may include up to 8 key participants, and for each of these individuals we will ask for a short biography, not a CV, as well as a description of how their expertise and the complementarity of their knowledge and expertise to operate the infrastructure and undertake the research and development activities that you are proposing in the application. Training of highly qualified personnel, or HQP, is the area in which you can describe your plan for training highly qualified personnel and how many of the HQPs will have access to the infrastructure. And this is a key component. And again, trainees are individuals that will be using the infrastructure and being trained on how to use the infrastructure to achieve the objectives of your project. In the Benefits to Canada section, you will be asked to describe the long-term impacts to both the region and Canada, recognizing mostly that college industry are quite regionally focused. However, we will ask you to outline this and any relevance into the Canadian setting. And finally, the performance indicators. These are related to the use of the infrastructure and will include such parameters as the number of HQP being trained, companies using the infrastructure, etc. And as always, there will be a financial module for you to list your infrastructure requirements and the costs associated with these, as well as the details about the partner funding that you will have, both cash and in kind. So again, this form will be available online in the coming month, and we will have another webinar though to guide you through that proposal online a little bit more in depth. Okay, I'll take a quick little stop there, and if there are any questions, definitely let us know. Okay, Dr. Tan, oops, hold on, I got a window popping up. Do we have separate guideline documents for the NOI and the full proposal available now? Maybe Heidi, can I ask you to answer that? Because I'm assuming so, but I'm not positive on that. I'll give Heidi a minute to turn on her microphone and answer that. And so as soon as she comes on, Dr. Tan will have an answer to that.
Hi,
or Anne, if you know the answer to that. Hi. Thank you, Heidi. So the question is if... Sounds good, Heidi.
Okay. So the question is written right. Do we have separate guideline documents for the NOI and the full proposal available now? The full proposal and guidelines are not available yet. They will be in May, about 1 month before the deadline for the NOI.
Okay, super. And I would assume the details for the full proposal will be coming out then in the summer, in advance of, definitely far in advance of the
but I mean
deadlines.
Right now,
the guidelines.
The guidelines for the NOI are available online as we speak, but not those of the full proposal. The application form and instructions for the full proposal will be available, like I said, in May, around May 10th.
Okay, super. Thank you so much, Heidi.
My pleasure.
Okay. I'm looking at the time. It's almost 2 o'clock and we have another hour. And so I'm going to propose we take just a 5-minute break to allow people to stretch their legs and get a sip of water if they need. And I will be back at 5 after 2. And in the meantime, definitely feel free to type in any questions you might have about what we've discussed so far. We still have a little bit to go through with respect to Stream 1 in the selection and evaluation process, and then some more information about Stream 2. We definitely won't be going with the presentation all the way to 3 o'clock, but we will have a lot of time to answer questions at that time. So I will break now, and I will be back in 5 minutes. And so enjoy your stretch, and we'll see you in just a sec. Okay, I am back. I'm hoping that most everybody else is back as well. If you did go somewhere. Okay, so we had left off at the selection criteria, and during the break there was a quick question about participants versus partners. The key participants are individuals who will have the expertise and the knowledge that's going to be required to one, use the infrastructure and to operate the infrastructure that is being requested, as well as to undertake the actual activities of the research and development being proposed. Whereas the partners are intended to be your industrial partners. So the key participants definitely can include the appropriate individuals from the organization, the industry partner. I mean, if it's a smaller SME, for example, that has minimal number of staff, it could definitely be the one and the same person ultimately, but the participants are individuals, whereas the partners are intended to be your industrial linkages, so the corporations and the companies with which you have your partnership and your collaboration. I hope that answers the question, Dr. Hopkinson, but if not, definitely um, um, let me know, and we can delve a little bit further into that. Okay, so I will move on to the selection criteria at both levels of the evaluation process. So as we mentioned, there's the expert committees or the expert review, as well as the multidisciplinary assessment committee. So at both of these levels, the proposals will be assessed based on three criteria that are listed on the slide or on your screen, and which corresponded, as you probably recall, the fund's objectives that we had talked about way at the beginning of the presentation. So to be funded, a proposal must satisfy all three criteria to agree that is commensurate with the size and complexity of the proposal. So the first, contribution to the business innovation. Uh, you will be asked to outline and describe how the college has a strong track record in building and maintaining partnerships with the private sector. These can include things such as contracts, technology transfer, knowledge transfer, etc. You will be asked to describe, and the proposal will be reviewed based on whether the requested infrastructure is crucial for maximizing the potential of the partnerships that you describe within the proposal, how the proposed activities clearly respond, or whether they clearly respond to the existing needs expressed by the private sector partners, the relevant experience, whether the relevant experience is available within the college for the applied research and technology transfer activities, and whether the proposed activities have the potential to lead to business innovation. So these are all sub categories that will be assessed under the key criteria of contributing to business innovation. The second criteria is to enhance the applied research and technology development capacity of colleges. And so within this section, you will be asked to provide information that will allow the reviewers to assess whether the requested infrastructure will boost the college's capacity for forging additional valuable partnerships with private sector partners in the future, whether the proposed activities are in a specific area in which the college has developed a niche of applied research and technology development excellence, and whether in the past the college has provided significant support and shown substantial commitment to applied research and technology development in the area of strategic priority, and that they will continue to do so. That the college has developed a plan for sustaining and continuing the relevance of the research infrastructure that's being requested, and that the requested infrastructure will create a stimulating and enriched environment for training highly qualified personnel, including the hands-on training with the state-of-the-art equipment relevant to the industrial setting. And finally, in this section, we will ask that you describe, and the reviewers will look at how the team demonstrates its ability to constantly remain up to date with respect to the current body of knowledge in the area and has the expertise to make effective use of the requested infrastructure. Finally, the review process will look at whether the activities that have been proposed will lead to socioeconomic benefits to the region and to Canada. The evaluation of the proposals, as I mentioned, is two-step. So first I will talk to you about the expert review process. Domain-specific experts will review the projects and will assess the strengths and the weaknesses of each of the proposals in relation to 3 review criteria. And the experts will not only include those with the domain-specific expertise in the area of the proposal, but they'll also have a thorough understanding of the business innovation process and the college environment. The Multidisciplinary Assessment Committee, or the MACs, will assess a large group of proposals as a way of calibrating the expert reviews, and based on their own assessment and information from the expert reviews, the MAC will be responsible for assessing each proposal against the 3 review criteria relative to the other competing requests. The MAC members will be chosen for their ability to think strategically so that they can assess the relative merits of the competing proposals and provide to the board the recommendations based on what they believe is the best investment portfolio for the CFI to be making, given that the funding envelopes are set. The MAC will also members will also be selected for their breadth and understanding of the applied research and technology development environment in Canada and within colleges very specifically. So their knowledge in the role of colleges in the innovation process and their understanding of the needs of industrial partners will be critical in our decision-making process and in picking who the members of that MAC will be. So to clarify, it will be the MAC who will make the funding recommendations to the CFI Board of Directors, and the CFI Board of Directors will have the ultimate decision making in terms, or the final decision, making the final decision on the funding of any given proposal. Okay. Joe, there is a question. Joe Rousel has asked, what would be an example of a socioeconomic benefit that is not captured by business innovation or enhanced research or HQP training? Oh, good question. I don't have a very specific example in mind right now. If anybody has an example, please feel free to type that in, or Heidi or Anne, if you have already talked about this, that would be wonderful. So please just pipe in if you have an example for Mr. Rousel, and if not, we will get you some. That is a great question. I apologize, I can't think of one right now. Okay, while we wait for further clarification or some examples on that, I'm going to move on to Stream 2. And so Stream 2 is a joint initiative between the CFI and the Tri-Council, so NSERC, to allow the colleges to apply for both the significant infrastructure component of their projects as well as the operating funds to pursue the research. And this puts everything into the same application process to ensure that a nice streamlined process, one application, one review, and it makes it a lot simpler for the college in that regard. So the CFI will partner with NSERC, as I had mentioned previously, in their upcoming rounds 8 and 9. These are 6 months apart, and I will go through the timelines in just a moment. So colleges that don't yet have a grant through the CCI program at NSERC may benefit from this program. And colleges will submit their NOI through NSERC only. So this application form or NOI won't be on the CFI site. The NOI will go directly through NSERC, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second. But you should note that the colleges will, if you're only considering submitting an application through Stream 2, you will still be required to confirm your eligibility with the CFI for the infrastructure component. Okay, so in terms of the timeline, again, for the June 3rd letter of intent deadline, we will have expected that you've already been in contact with the CFI to determine your eligibility so that we have all the necessary components of information on hand. Now, there is a significant difference between this competition and the Stream 1, which I've just finished outlining, in that the letter of intents will be reviewed. They are assessed, and I'll talk more about that in just a moment. And the second major difference is that NSERC will handle the complete evaluation process. Okay, so the LOIs will be submitted to NSERC on June 3rd, and they will be assessed through the NSERC's CCI committee. And this is at the same time as the regular NSERC CCIs, so they'll all be in the same committee. And the NSERC will determine which of these applications will go forward and be invited to submit a full proposal. And so the invitation will be sent out to those that have succeeded in August, and the proposal deadline will be the expert review of the full proposals will again take place through NSERC. The CFI will partake in those to ensure the infrastructure component is addressed. And the NSERC CCI selection committee will make the funding recommendations. And so for those CCIs that have included a CFI infrastructure component, these funding recommendations will go forward to the CFI board, who will make the final decisions on only the infrastructure component in March 2012. Okay. Now there will be a 6-month little break in there between the first and second competition. So for round 9, the NOI deadline will be this coming November, with a full proposal deadline in April 2012. So just following the decision of the first competition, the full applications for round 9 will be due. Okay, we have it looks like a couple questions. I'll take those now. Dr. Tan has asked, is one page sufficient for the suggested reviewer's online CV? There's not an online CV. I guess I'm not understanding the question. For the suggested reviewers, there is the appropriate space for you to provide the necessary contact information. So it's not a CV that we're asking for. It's simply their name and some keywords that, and we'll look them up on our end. So if I've misunderstood that, please let me know. But I think I'm wondering. I think I understand that you're saying, is we've allocated only one page. Is that sufficient? And yes, because we are only asking for contact information. But an online CV is required in the form, is what Dr. Tan is asking. There is no CV. We're not asking for CVs anywhere, actually. What we are asking for is if there's an online link that you copy in the address itself, so the internet address, and we can go to it from there. But we're not asking you to submit CVs at all. Okay, and but if you want, there is an option. I'll confirm that for you. And Janine Hodgson-Baines has asked that colleges interested in entering into a new area of research should apply to the CCI suite of programs. Yes, Stream 2 is meant I guess it can be a little bit confusing. Stream 2 is meant for those that and offers an opportunity for those that don't yet have a CCI grant that to put forward a grant application to the NSERC through the CCI program innovation enhancement section in an area that you already have an established research and development partnerships. You have funding from other sources. So you've already built capacity at the institution in that area. Where I had indicated previously that we would suggest you consider their entry level CCI is more for areas where you don't have yet an established capacity at the institution. So I hope that answers your question there. Definitely let me know if it doesn't. And in terms of Dr. Tan's question with regards to the CV question, in the NOI for Stream 1, for the suggested reviewers, we are asking only for their contact information and a few key criteria. I think the confusion is in terms of the online link. The link itself is an option, but that's what we're referring to when we say an online CV link is simply something, an additional piece of information in terms of contacting that individual. Dr. Lucan has asked that, I think it got cut off. I think you hit enter there. I'll wait till you complete the question and I'll continue on, and we'll take some more questions in just a few minutes. Okay, so there are 3 key criteria for Stream 2 applications to the CCI, in addition to the CFI's criteria for the infrastructure portion. These are available on the NSERC website, and so I'm not going to go through these too much in depth, other than to highlight some of the standards. And so on your screen, you see the criteria. The potential to contribute to local or regional innovation. So there are a number of standards by which you are asked to provide information and to describe. One of these, for example, is the track record of the college in contributing to the local or regional innovation and the potential to enhance its capacity to work with local or regional businesses. The second overarching criteria is the excellence of the proposal. And so in this, there again are a number of different criteria, including the quality of the team and the availability of the skills to accomplish the work plan. So ensuring that you have the appropriate participants and researchers in your group to ensure that you can successfully implement the project as you've outlined in the proposal. And the extent to which the proposal will support the college's strategic plan. And finally, the need for and use of the resources. So this will include information that you'll provide in the proposal on and demonstrating the need for the increased capacity for applied research in the area that you've proposed, and for supporting the technology transfer at the institution. So there are a number of the 3 criteria and a number of components within, and then the CFI criteria in the infrastructure portion will be just a small component. There won't be the same application form duplicated as in a Stream 1 application, let's say, in conjunction with the CCI. It will be one application form, and it will include just the one section for the budget and an outline essentially to justify and explain the need for the infrastructure that you are requesting. Okay, so I'll go back to a quick question that an entry-level CCI grant is only available to institutions have no CCI at all. And yes, that's right. So Dr. Lucan, to answer that question, what we've recommended is that for institutions that are looking at establishing capacity in a new area of priority and research development at the institution, that these aren't quite suited for the CIIF program at the CFI. Sorry, but there are there's a lot of acronyms there. The CCI program at NSERC is divided into a few different sections. One of them is the entry level, so that is where you can apply to if you've never received a CCI. But there's also the innovation enhancement, and so that is the specific program with which the CFI is partnering for this Stream 2 component. And so it's the NSERC's CCI innovation enhancement plus CCI as one kind of package component that is available. And there are also other CCI or also other grants at NSERC, such as the Applied Research Tools and Instrument grants and Applied Research and Development grants. So there are a number of different other options for those colleges that are looking at projects that are in a new area where you haven't established that capacity yet. So just to enunciate that this competition, this fund is intended for those projects where the institution already has some of that capacity built up. So you've got the partners in place already. You've had some operating funds, and so you have the experience in that area. Okay. Okay, so I'll just talk a little bit about the letter of intent. In order to apply for funding through Stream 2, you must, as I've mentioned, go through the NSERC website, just as you would for any other regular CCI proposal using Form 186. The form has been updated to include an extra set of instructions on the additional information that will be needed for the research infrastructure component that you're requesting from the CFI, and namely the amount of funding that you are requesting and a brief description of the nature of the infrastructure that you are intending to include in your full proposal. The updated set of instructions is available online now, and so if you have any issues in getting to that, again, it's on the NSERC website, so it's not on the CFI website. The letter of intent is then submitted directly through NSERC, and the budget requested from the CFI doesn't have to be final. I just wanted to note, but it should be a close estimate and include a very good outline of the infrastructure that you intend on. Okay, the full application. Again, I keep saying it, and so I do apologize for repeating, but I just wanted to make it clear because it can be confusing. You're applying to funding from the CFI, but in Stream 2, your full proposal, your full application will be submitted directly to NSERC. There is an abbreviated CFI application that will be submitted to the CFI from that, and this will include a description of the required infrastructure, your plan, the institutional plan on sustaining and continuing the relevance of the infrastructure, the expertise to use the infrastructure, and the complementarity with the project that is being proposed of within the CFI or CCI. I apologize, there's a lot of C's here. The socioeconomic benefits to the region and to Canada. In addition, some baseline information on some of the appropriate performance measures are going to be requested at that time and related to the use of the infrastructure. And finally, the finance module, which is your budget. The CFI will do the administrative review of this section and forward the completed application form to NSERC, where they'll combine it with their 5-year CCI full application for joint review. So again, the application will be reviewed jointly. And so that is all of the information about the two streams of the CIIF. I hope this was very helpful. I'm just going to end, before we get to the questions, on some tips and reminders. First, the infrastructure needs. So the infrastructure that you're requesting in your applications must be aligned with the institutional strategy. And so that is important. Your strategic research plan and your priorities are meant to be reviewed, and the infrastructure and the project which you're proposing is intended to be aligned with your strategy. We definitely recommend that you get your partners involved early on to help develop your project strategy. And identify potential reviewers and use the guidelines that I've presented in this slide presentation, or the slides will be available, by the way, but use those as your guiding principles to identify the potential reviewers. So again, we don't want anybody that doesn't have the appropriate expertise. We want to avoid you recommending anybody that might have a conflict of interest. Our ultimate goal isn't to make your life difficult in this regard, but we want to make sure that we have the right reviewers to take a look at your project and to provide us with an expert opinion on that. If you have any questions, definitely feel free to contact your CFI Senior Programs Officer. If you don't know who that is, you can call our main number and we will definitely guide you to the right person. If you haven't already, especially if you are planning on submitting an application in June, or the NOI in June, for either the first competitions of Stream 1 or 2, you already should have established your eligibility status, and if you have not, I'm sure our phone will be ringing after this webinar. Definitely contact us via email at ciif@innovation.ca. And I'm just going to put that on there for you so you have it available. And use the guide. It's a wonderful resource when you're putting together your proposal, and obviously the call for proposals, which outlines everything about the competition, from the objectives right through to the review process. So I'm just going to make sure to see if we have any questions. Colin Kelly has asked, how is a determination made which program is appropriate for first-time college applications? The 5-year NSERC CCI grant versus the 2-year. I believe, and Heidi, if I'm wrong in this, I'll ask you to come online, but I believe the 2-year is more an entry-level grant, if I'm not mistaken. So we are only linking with the 5-year NSERC CCI Innovation Enhancement, or IE, grant process for their rounds 8 and 9. And so the institution, I would suggest you be in contact with NSERC in that regard. Let me just get through. Does Carl Weatherall has asked, does the project leader need to be a faculty member? Normally, yes. I'm just going to confirm that because the colleges there are some differences, but actually, I see Heidi, you're online. I believe that the answer to Carl Weatherall's question is indeed yes. Not all key participants need to be faculty members, but I do believe, but I could be wrong, that the project leader needs to be a faculty member. Heidi, could you confirm that for me, please?
Yes, hi. Well,
okay.
Hi.
Hi, Heidi.
Well, we expect this to be the case. However, we've seen cases where there might be a research professional, someone that's not necessarily a teacher in a college, but that does research. And we see that especially in Quebec with their CCTTs. So in that case, that would be possible if the person is qualified but works at the college, for the college, then that's fine. We just wouldn't want to have a project leader that's from the private sector. A participant, yes, but the leader should be someone qualified to do research at the college. So I hope this answers your question.
Great. Does anybody have any other questions for us? Okay. And again, if you do have a microphone, feel free to use your little hand under personal options, and I will take questions that way as well. Okay, so it looks like we've answered everything that you've thought of just now. I'm sure you'll have questions available, or questions that might come up later, and definitely feel free to contact the Senior Programs Officer that has been assigned to your institution at any time. And I just wanted to remind you that a number of these documents, including the presentation, the slide deck, is available both from within this activity through the download documents to download, but it will also be available online on the CFI's website at cfinnovation.ca. So feel free to take a look at those. And we're also, given that we're just starting to do webinars, I will send an evaluation form and to you later next week, and I hope to get your feedback in terms of what you thought of doing the information sessions via webinar versus via in person or in any other format. So I look forward to your responses on that. They will definitely be useful in moving forward and helping us to determine what is best for the community in terms of providing this information to you. In addition, again, I mentioned at the very beginning, but the session has been taped and is being recorded now, and it will be available as well on the website very shortly, potentially, hopefully within the week. Okay. So I will wait just a minute. If you have no more questions, definitely feel free to sign out, but I will stay online for a few more minutes to make sure that there are no more questions. But I'll take this opportunity now to thank you very much for participating in our webinar, and I hope that we provided you with some information that will help you move forward in putting your applications forward. Okay, thank you all very, very much, and it's been a pleasure providing this seminar for you. We'll talk to you very soon, and good luck with your applications. I'm sure I'll be talking to some of you very soon.